Hey everyone, welcome back. Apologies, there seems to be an issue with my video recording today, so not sure what's going on there, but I guess in that case we'll just jump right into the presentation, so at least you'll be able to see my presentation that I have for you. Today's conversation is going to be fairly brief. I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the conversation we recently had about travel and transformation because we touched upon it there. We touched upon the fact that um, so much of what's going on in the world, it brings up concerns for all of us, and how travel and inclusivity can really bring some powerful points to the conversation. So I want to talk to you a little bit today about why the personal and professional is political. On some level, I'm sure I don't have to tell you this, but on some level, I also want to dive deeper into this because this applies to design, this applies to your space, and it applies to how you go about your business. And I, for one, am a big believer about being vocal. Not everyone would agree with me on that, and that's okay. But I want you to understand why, and I want you to understand um, why it's important to consider being vocal on your platforms. A lot of not sharing comes from fear. It may come from privilege. It may come from wanting to protect one's position in a company, or simply believing that not getting involved in the conversation is the smarter thing for you. But I'm going to share today why I believe it's important to be vocal, especially right now. So, yeah, the personal and professional is political. Everything that policy dictates, um, that's created, by our political leaders, um, has an impact on us. It has an impact on our society, and it does have impact on us as individuals. We talk about impacts to healthcare, talk about impacts to um, human rights, human rights violations, what's being allowed versus what's being held accountable right now. So these things are all important. Let's talk about the professional. Um, the number of jobs that are out there and available right now, the unemployment rate, those are all political issues that are related to professional life for a lot of people. There are certain demographics who experience a lot of job loss recently, and that's extremely problematic. Right? I know that I don't know the exact number offhand. I forget what it was, but a lot of Black women lost jobs this year during um, during as a, the Trump administration, as a result of some of his cuts, I think, from government work. I need to look into the specifics of those numbers, but um, that's a problem. That's a problem. Um, we know that they have gotten rid of DEI. They're saying that that's not a thing, and in fact, some companies have um, gotten rid of DEI that are not government because they want to stay competitive, right? So that's also a problem. This is all setting a tone for how we operate personally and professionally, whether we're talking about what's happening to us as individuals with regard to our rights, with our healthcare, with anything else like that. Professional, whether we're talking about job loss, whether we're talking about whether people think it's okay to discriminate against us at work now, whether it's hard to be able to get a job if you have a certain demographic background, or if you may have lost your job and you think it may be due to a demographic background. All that stuff is a problem, and it's we have a responsibility, I believe, to contribute positively to this conversation when it comes to awareness. As we talked about in another video, art and travel and experience and connecting with other cultures can really bring some powerful conversations or points back to the conversation that we have with our loved ones, with our friends, with our colleagues. And it can really expand upon the conversation and understanding that can occur across cultures when people decide to be open and to listen. So I'm here for progressive believers, people who think, act, do, and be based on progressive beliefs. And I believe as an artist and a solopreneur and soulpreneur, we have a big chance, an opportunity, and a responsibility, I believe, to help fellow humans with our work and add to and uplift. Sorry, there's a typo, not uplife, but uplift this conversation, the conversations we have with our friends, our loved ones, etc. And we have specific, powerful ways to correct the narrative via our actions and how we shape our spaces in all kinds of environments. Art has this beautiful way of attracting attention to an issue. So when we create art, we have these opportunities to educate people about what's going on in the world. We have an opportunity to really pull someone in with our artwork and then share a story that we believe they need to know. Okay, so if our spaces are an extension of us and they are an extension of our creativity and the way we think about art, they're also an extension of how we believe we get to change this conversation. We get to educate people, how we get to share our progressive beliefs. And I honestly, it's called progressive. It's called progressive in today's day and age, but I just believe it's being a human. I just believe that what we call progressive beliefs in 2025 is simply like how to be a human 101, how to be kind, how to be understanding and inclusive. So you may call it progressive. I personally call it just being a good human. So we do have ways to correct the narrative with our actions, with our art, how we shape our spaces, how we share, and all kinds of environments that we create, that we engage in, etc. And we have, I believe, the responsibility to do exactly that. So if you are here and you are here for that, I'm glad you're in the right place. I want to share 2 ways in which I'm doing this because it might spark some ideas for you. I would love to see you doing these kinds of things in your own powerful, creative ways, right? So I design with context in mind, with global and political and human context in mind. And I'm considering all aspects of how a project will resonate, who it will resonate with, why, how will it tell a story, and so on. Art, again, is transformational. Calling attention to disparities, concerns through art whenever possible, right? We want to bring attention to this. I'll share one specific example. I am currently working on a line of wallpaper art, pattern design. It might become more than wallpaper, but for now it's focused on wallpaper. And there are certain topics around feminism that are baked into the art. There are certain topics around nature and conservation that are baked into the art, and there are certain conversations that are baked in around indigenous life and beliefs baked into the artwork, as well as the naming, what I'm choosing to name these lines, so that someone may look at the artwork, say, "Oh wow, that's really neat. I'd love to pick up a role with that," right? And when they do so, hey, great, they're gonna learn a little bit about maybe nature, indigenous life. They may learn about cycles, about something related to feminism, etc. And so we have the opportunity to do these things and educate. So I may name something, for example, like a nature feature, right? Even nature wallpaper. And because it's inspired by artwork nature that exists in a certain area, I might pick up some native language to describe it, right? I might consult with a native indigenous person and say, hey, what do you think about me using this word that in your culture means blankety blank, like this type of nature, to describe that do you think that would be appropriate? Do you think it would call good attention to the nature and what the people who originally lived here referred to it as? Maybe some of its healing properties, if it's a healing plant or herb. And would it be appropriate to contribute some of the proceeds of this artwork to a native scholarship fund or something like that? So these, you see where I'm going with this? There are so many ways in which we can contribute. to the conversation, and sometimes literally contribute financially to some of these important efforts too. So when I'm doing these kinds of things, because I believe that it's extremely important, I'm also sharing what I'm doing, not as like a like, hey, look at what I'm doing kind of thing. I want people, this isn't a virtue signaling activity, to be clear. I'm doing this because, and I'm sharing it, um, because I want you to be doing stuff like this too. I'm sharing this because I believe we should all be doing this to whatever extent we find we can. Okay, so just to be clear, that's why I'm sharing this, because otherwise, I actually haven't shared that information with very many people aside from close friends and family. I'm sharing it with you because I want you to do it as well. Not that literally. You don't have to, I mean, you're on here, you may or may not be in the art field. You may be doing something totally different. You probably are. And so I want you to think creatively about how you could contribute to the conversation and the positive change in your own way. And I know you absolutely can find a way. If you need help with ideas on that too, let me know, because I am an idea gal for sure. So I'm urging you to do the same. And that's why I'm here today with this message. So I want to wrap with a quick quote, because I believe this is true. By the way, this guy has I love the way he talks. He's got he made a really funny joke on his, I think it was his X account or something. I don't have an X account, but as I was like looking up his work and what he does, he said something about how the views in his profile didn't reflect anything about his like employer or work, and that guy was an asshole. And I thought to myself, either he has a boss who has a really good sense of humor, or he's his own boss. He's probably his own boss, right? He's an artist. So Mike Montero, kind of a sassy, quirky guy. I love the way he's sharing himself there online. But he had this quote, and I thought it was great. What we choose to design, and more importantly, what we choose not to design, and even more importantly, who we exclude from the design process. These are all political acts. So the moral of that story, I believe, this is how I'm interpreting it, you are part of this political conversation, whether you want to be or not, whether you consider yourself political or not. It's not that you aren't political. You are, if you are a human being existing on this planet. But what you do get to choose is how you get to be intentional about it or not. And I choose that. I hope that you choose to be, you probably already choosing to be super intentional. And I'm hoping you choose to be even more intentional. And maybe there's something in this video that inspired you to do so. I certainly hope that it makes that kind of a positive impression, even if it's just a little bit. So thanks for being here. And thank you for doing the cool things you do and sharing the good vibes and making those positive ripples out there. We'll see you next time.